clear of the closing doors, please.
All right, here we go. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Today, I'm going solo on Subway Sports Talk. It's just your boy talking about two things that have been pretty top of mind for me in the sports world right now. And I'm also live on Twitter Spaces right now, which I'm sure that nobody is going to pop into, but that's A-okay. Because I just figured I'll throw it up there just in case anybody does happen to pop in and does happen to have something to say. They can feel free to jump in, and maybe this is something that we'll do a little bit more often as we move into 2025, full-fledged, running content as much as humanly possible. That's what we're out here to do right here on Subway Sports Talk. So today, the two topics are the coverage of sports right now at the national level. And this topic is obviously kind of centered upon this conversation that's been going on with the NBA as of late, and of course with the rest of sports coverage in general, NFL, NBA, MLB. There's a lot of things to complain about, and I don't think people in this one case are complaining for no reason. It's making sense across the board why people aren't loving national coverage in general. And we'll talk about the specifics and the goods, the bads, the uglies of that entire thing. And then I want to get into Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward, and maybe even sprinkle in a little Jackson Dart, if we're being honest, because I think there's more and more stuff coming out that he could be closer to the rest of, or I shouldn't say the rest, to the two of the top quarterbacks in this class. So I want to talk Shedeur. I want to talk Cam Ward. But first, let's get into this whole thing with the NBA coverage and the way the players are talking about the national media right now. This has become a pretty big topic of conversation, and this has become something that people are really upset and passionate about. When we talk about it with players, when we talk about it with the actual media itself, when we talk about it with fans, people don't understand how people are being covered. And the one thing that I've been stuck on thinking about over this past week of conversations about this is the turn that took place as the data in this world started getting more and more intense. I remember the first person I've ever heard use this type of terminology was Colin Cowherd. I used to be a loyal Colin Cowherd listener. He would often talk about why he talked why he picked what his topics were. And those topics were obviously pretty NFL specific. They were obviously star specific. They were team specific. And generally speaking, he had this idea of what he wanted to cover through the data, right? And to me, that was always smart. It made sense. It was a good reason as to why you're talking about something. If the people who are listening to your podcast, listening to your television show, your radio show, following you on social media, are engaging more with things on certain topics, as a host, as a production team, as a network, you are going to want to talk about those things more. That makes sense. And for a long time, it's something that I subscribed to from Colin Cowherd's perspective. And First Take was obviously on this same exact wavelength. And I think when people talk about national media, First Take is something that is right top of mind for everybody. So though I understood that type of train of thought when it comes to the producers in this space, when it comes to the networks in this space, to me, there is a point of diminishing return. Because you're telling me with ESPN First Take, with Colin Cowherd, with any Get Up, any show like that, First Things First, all these types of shows, if you talk about the Dallas Cowboys, you're more likely to get more clicks, to get more views, to get more people engaged, to get more people talking. That makes sense to me. So what do these networks and shows do? These networks and shows, they decide to double, triple, quadruple down on those topics. So then as a regular fan growing up watching SportsCenter, there obviously was a bias to the most popular teams. There was a bias to the best teams. But there was some sort of balance of having to tell the story of what's going on in the world of sports. What just happened in the world of sports? So now in this digital age, we don't need ESPN to tell us the score of the Nuggets versus Pistons last night. We know it. If we want to find out, we can. We want to watch the highlights, we can. So the day SportsCenter started to die was the day the data started to live. But to me, this diminishing return, that space is where we are currently. We're sitting in a place in sports right now where the biggest content is thought of as not the best content, where the biggest content is the easiest to hate. It's often negative. It's often created through rage bait. It's often talking about a very small base of topics. That combination right there doesn't add up to me in the long term. And clearly, all the executives at these big networks, all the people behind these big shows, they knew what they were doing. And I'm sure they've made a lot of money along the way. But let me know if I am wrong. But I feel like the tide is turning. And there's a reason why you're looking to certain people for content. You're looking to Pat McAfee, even though he's now on one of those networks. You're looking to Bill Simmons. You're looking to a podcast or a YouTube show that covers your team or covers your favorite sport or covers your favorite league. And these shows are giving you the coverage that you actually need, that you actually want. Because I think the big difference is the data-driven shows, they're trying to give the people what they want because they think that's what they want based upon views and clicks and comments and shares and etc. But the best content, I think we can all agree, are the taste makers. They're the people where the personality shines through. Where even if Bill Simmons has on a guest talking about SNL, and I'm not a huge fan, I might give it a chance because I'm a fan of his show. I'm a fan of his energy. And I think these big networks are missing that. And Pat McAfee is one of the few people who are shining through. Pat McAfee is having on Tyrese Halliburton to talk a little NBA. And there's non-NBA fans watching that show who are now looking at the NBA from a different perspective because they're trusting in this tastemaker that is Pat McAfee to drive them through a good segment. Yeah, maybe it doesn't get as many clicks in the big algorithm. Maybe it doesn't get as much coverage or buzz in the moment. But at the end of the day, in order to be truly successful, you need to have an audience that wants to show up back to you, not because you just simply talk about the things that get the most buzz, but because they want to hear what you have to say. And Stephen A. Smith is one of these guys who comes into space here. We obviously, all the people on Get Up, all the people on First Take, Colin Cowherd, all these folks on ESPN, Fox Sports 1, etc. I'm not trying to single any one person out because it can't be one person's fault. It's too big. And frankly, over time, it's been things out of the creative's control. It's business driven. But when it comes to business, I think there's more to it. The negativity sells in the moment. The negativity sells online. The Cowboys sell in the moment. They sell online. But to build something over time, it just doesn't make sense to me. When you have people constantly criticizing a league in the NBA, constantly being hard on our stars, which is okay, but constantly and only being hard on stars, where's the growth opportunity in that? Where's the possibility of actually bringing in fans because of that? Because, yeah, of course, you get comments through rage, but are you creating fans? One of our former bosses at WFAN, who I didn't get to know super well, but I did know him a little bit, and obviously, he was a boss there, so I heard from him a bunch. One of the things that I thought he always said that was super smart when talking to the host at WFAN was, remember that the callers and the people on Twitter are not the majority of our listeners. And I think that's a hard thing to comprehend sometimes, because when you're hosting at the Fan or producing at the Fan like I do, you hear the callers, you see the tweets. So it feels like they carry a massive weight. But if you think about the thousands and thousands and thousands of people who listen to WFAN every single day, a large majority of those people do not tweet at you and do not call into the station. I think that's the case for the national landscape as well. You get so tied down easily into seeing what's on Twitter and seeing what the loud minority is saying that you let it drive your whole existence. And that's where ESPN, I think, has gone wrong. They've let the numbers overtake the creativity, the ability for these creators to actually be tastemakers. Because all the people who I fell in love with growing up and who I still follow to this day, I don't just listen to them because they talk about my favorite things. I listen to them because I value what they're going to say and how they're going to say it and who they're going to say it with. When you want to watch First Take, you might be a Stephen A. Smith fan, and that might get you in the door. If you're not a Stephen A. Smith fan, you might only see clips with certain people who inspire you to be that interested. Maybe it's a Dan Orlovsky. Maybe it's a Brian Windhorst. Because all these people have in them exactly what it takes to be great at First Take. But First Take got lost along the way. And at this point, it's too driven on what they think you want instead of giving you what you actually do need. And I know TV is a weird thing right now. I know I'm talking to way less people and abhorrent amount less people than they are. But to anyone listening, you might feel some of the stuff that I feel. Since when has it just been so understood that some of the biggest content out there is not good? When was the last person you've met in your life who's like, yeah, I watch it because it's great and really helps me learn or talk and understand what's going on in the world of sports? No. It helps you think and talk about like 3 things that are happening in sports. That's not what it's supposed to be. And I think we're leading to that point of diminishing return where you're just turning people away now. And people are going to the long form NBA shows for NBA content, NFL shows for NFL content. It's what I generally do. It's pretty simple. I listen to a few shows no matter what. And then if I want NBA talk, I go to an NBA show. If I want NFL talk, I go to an NFL show. If I want to go to a comedy portion, I go to a comedian's podcast that I like. If I want to be just simply entertained about my New York teams, I go to the Fan. I'm not turning on national coverage. It's hard to, because as somebody who takes pride in watching sports and does it partially for a job, I watch these teams too much to listen to people who seem like they clearly don't, because they're just trying to rile you up. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to do this thing where, I actually watch the games and Charles Barkley doesn't. Charles Barkley knows more about basketball if he watched 3 minutes of a game than if I watch 30. It's fine. It's true. But also, when you see it over and over and over again, when you watch these same people over and over and over again, when clearly there's no propping up of this sport that we love ever, and it's all negativity and it's all nothingness. It's all the same concepts and same topics. What are we getting out of it? I know what most people are getting out of it that I know in my life. They're not getting anything because they're turning it off. And to circle this back to the NBA in general, the NBA is going through a weird moment right now where some of the coverage is poor. It's really poor. That's probably being too generous. The NBA had a chance when football ended and they were going into their All-Star break to grab the country and run with it. Instead, they fuddled through the final week, had a horrible All-Star break, and people still haven't stopped hating on it. It makes it easy almost to crap on the sport. And as somebody who loves the NBA, who's going to finish recording this podcast and go watch Pistons versus the Jazz, and I'm not kidding, I'm going to go watch Pistons Jazz. So hopefully it'll be halftime when I finish this. I'll watch the second half if it's pretty close. We need to talk about more of the things that are actually happening in our leagues. ESPN just dropped baseball. Baseball has been going on for a long time now. Baseball has been going through this stage where they can't get nationals anything to talk about them. Weirdly, baseball is in this point now where it's just kind of running on its own. It's got great regional coverage. It's got the great baseball diehards. They make a lot of money. They're doing well. And you don't have people doing think pieces on why the NBA is horrible. I'm sorry, why the MLB is horrible. You don't have people doing think pieces right now about what's wrong with baseball, because we've done that every year for about 10 years. How can we fix baseball? Baseball's in a decent spot right now. But even when it was how can we fix baseball, it wasn't I hate baseball. It sucks. It's a bunch of soft people. It's a bunch of people who just love the spotlight. Like, this is the rhetoric that gets thrown around with the NBA. And it doesn't make sense to me because I watch the games and I see what these people are all about. Then you sit down and you think about, does this actually make sense? Is there people who are inspiring to talk about the league like this? And I think it does. For one, it's such a rings culture league where everybody can be called a fraud until you win. And that is bothersome to me. Because basically, if you are one of these types of fans who's a national media type, where you kind of hate everything, you kind of see stuff fail and get a little giddy on it if it's not your favorite team or your favorite player, you can just go out there and call everybody a fraud. You can say everybody sucks, and you're going to be right about 95% of the time in today's day and age. And what I mean by that, if you were never a James Harden fan, you can go out there for years and years and years and say, oh, he's just a stat patter. He's never going to win. He's never going to do this. He's never going to get over the hump. And you're most likely right, more often than not. Because guess what? Most people don't win championships. Most people don't make it over that hump. So you can say that Russell Westbrook, overrated. Kevin Durant, well, he sucks because he only won when he joined Steph, so he clearly sucked always. He's a fraud. He's soft. I know I just went for 3 teammates there, but they're the first 3 that popped in my head. Chris Paul can't get it done in the big moment. He's soft. He's a fraud. If that's your angle on sports because they didn't win it all, what do you do for fun, man? What do you do when you want to talk about actually enjoying the thing that you supposedly like because you watch the thing or you talk about the thing or you make it seem like you care about the thing? Oh, Josh Allen, fraud. Lamar Jackson, fraud. Joe Burrow, almost a fraud, kind of a fraud. He made it once, but he still hasn't won yet. Fraud. What do you like? That's where we are right now. And it's a weird place to be in the world of sports. I know we've had similar stuff over the course of history. Like, it's not like some brand new concept here, but the way these leagues are covered now is very different. The way these leagues have actually grown is beyond the comprehension of somebody from the 1990s. Like, I'm a nobody, and I'm talking to some people. Not a lot of people, but I'm talking to people right now on my podcast, Subway Sports Talk. People are going to click on it when this goes up. They're going to listen to these words. That's crazy for a concept somebody 30 years ago. You can only go to ESPN. You can only go to Fox on Sundays. You can only go to Sunday Night Baseball. Right now, just in the tri-state area, there's probably 10 Mets-specific podcasts recording as I speak. Just Mets-specific stuff. That's where we are. And people are going to more places to find their stuff. But I do think the world of sports is better when the national coverage is good. And that's why when I see somebody like Kevin Garnett being positive about the players in the NBA, it's so refreshing to me. It makes you realize, oh, not everyone who's over the hump is just a straight up hater on today's generation. Kevin Garnett's talking about Nikola Jokic. You would think that he saw an alien because he's so impressed by what the man does on the floor. You see Kevin Garnett talking about players left and right, from mid-tier to stars to superstars, and saying positive things about what they do. And not like he's just blindly being positive, blindly hyping everybody up, but the fact that he's seeing stuff, reacting to it without trying to find an angle that's going to get people hyped up and riled up. That's beautiful. And that's what you get when you go to these podcasts as well. You listen to a Ryan Russillo and you're like, all right, this guy clearly is putting thoughts into what he's seeing on his television screen and trying to portray something interesting, whether it be positive or negative. And that's what the job should be. You should try to be interesting, not trying to be negative, not trying to be positive. You should just try to be interesting. And then you can come back and tell me, oh, well, the numbers are showing that it must be more interesting when it's very negative. That's going to run out. That's going to be something over time that is not going to be additive to your network. And it's happening right now with the NBA. It's proof that that's happening in the NBA right now. There is so much shit talk about NBA stars, ones who have won championships and ones who haven't, especially, that it makes the average fan just think everyone sucks. It makes the average fan think everyone's soft. It makes the average fan never hear about players that could be very exciting to them. That's why networks and podcasts, and especially the big ones, they should be taste makers, not just data followers. Of course, you're going to have to find the balance. Of course, you're going to have to pay the bills in certain ways. I get that. I'm not ignorant to that. And I know for a fact, if I were lucky enough to ever work on a show like this, I 100% would understand you got to talk about big stuff that matters to more people in order to win the game of making content. But at the same time, to win long-term, you need to create fans. To win long-term, you need to have people invested in the thing that you're talking about. And if your angle is constant negativity, you are turning people away from the product you need to be good for your job to make sense. And to me, that's simple math at some point. You, as a person, want to talk about sports, right? I want to talk about sports. If I made all my listeners hate the sports and athletes that I'm talking about, then they don't need me anymore, because then they hate the people, they don't watch the people, they don't intake the stuff anymore, and it's over, right? If I made every New York sports fan who listens to Subway Sports Talk despise the New York sports team that they watch, and they stop watching as much, they stop listening as much. It's very simple. You can't be a lackey who's always positive, but you can't be this negative, content-hungry, click-hungry content creator that has no soul and no love for the game that got us to where we are. So I digress. So that being said, Subway Sports Talk, Pete Kennedy, right here on Spotify, Apple Podcast app, YouTube, everywhere you listen to podcasts, also on socials at Subway Sports Talk. We're also live on Twitter Spaces right now. I saw a few people pop in really quick, but that's okay. Just a test. I threw it up because why not? Figured if somebody jumped in, maybe they might want to hop in and say something. And right now we're going to talk about our next topic, which is the Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward conversation when it comes to the NFL draft. As we speak right now, Cam Ward looks like he is going to be the first quarterback taken off the board. And now, of course, that's something that could always change, because these things are always going to change until it actually happens. There are obviously many years where we know who is going to be the first pick. Like Caleb Williams last year was a lock. I'm sure it was one of those things that if you could even bet on it at all on DraftKings and FanDuel and et cetera, it was probably minus 15,000. Cam Ward right now is minus 230 to be the number one pick. And he is also minus 700 to be the first quarterback selected. So Shedeur Sanders is plus 400 and Jackson Dart is plus 2,500. After that, it's literally impossible for another quarterback to go ahead of these guys. Just my opinion, but also probably just the truth based off these numbers, right? But with the conversation going on with Cam Ward versus Shedeur Sanders, I've been finding it more and more interesting how people are breaking down these two players. I've started my YouTube dive. I've started going through the tape as much as I can see of Cam Ward, every single pass in game X, every single pass in game Y, every single pass in game Z. You get the point. That I do that for Cam Ward, Shedeur Sanders. I'll do it for Jackson Dart. I haven't gotten to Jackson Dart much yet, but I've done it a decent bit so far for Cam Ward and Shedeur Sanders. And the overall thing that I'm hearing from the outside forces, that being like the draft nicks who make the mock drafts, make the big boards, who do this all year, the people who I trust the most in that space, etc. And then plus what I've seen in my own two eyes, during the season last year and now on YouTube on the tape that I can find on YouTube. And shout out to all those people who make those YouTube content. I mean, seriously, like you could Google Shedeur Sanders versus whatever team he played, every drop back. And there's just a compilation of every drop back he takes in an entire game. I'm like, wow, y'all doing the Lord's work. So thank you. So what I'm really taking in with this conversation, I think I'm starting to truly lean somewhere, is my point. Everyone's talking about Cam Ward being toolsy, having all the traits, having the talent, having the size, and all these things honestly make sense for what we do when it comes to drafting anybody, but especially quarterbacks. It's always about having the tools, having the traits, hitting the markers that you need to hit in order to be successful. But what I'm hearing about Shedeur Sanders right now, and part of this goes back to the media coverage again, is not all the same type of stuff that you hear with Cam Ward. There's a lot more gray area stuff when it comes to Shedeur Sanders. So all this stuff that goes on about who his father is and what type of atmosphere he might bring to your favorite team and what that last name carries and how Dion might affect it. That, first of all, I don't subscribe to. It is my opinion that this dude, Shedeur Sanders, is most equipped out of any of these young men trying to be quarterbacks at the next level to handle the pressure. Do you think anyone could put more pressure on Shedeur Sanders than Deion Sanders? Do you think anybody is more equipped to handle cameras in their face, question being asked, than somebody who's Deion Sanders' kid, who's constantly been around media, constantly had a camera in his face, has been the face of a school alongside his father through a major come up in Colorado? To me, that stuff doesn't make any sense. All this dude has done is ball. All Shedeur Sanders has done in his career is win and lift up the people around him. And now I get it. That's also a gray area conversation. So on one hand, when people say that he is very much going to be a circus at the next level, I'm criticizing that by saying it's a gray area conversation. Then I come back and say, I think his leadership is legit. I think he's equipped to have a camera in his face. I think he's equipped for the big light to be on him because he's always had it on him. And that's also a gray area conversation. So the thing to me that's actually really funny now, because I'll take the gray area stuff out of it, what are the other things we're hearing about Shedeur Sanders? We are hearing two sides of a coin. One, he's actually not as athletic as he seems, and he's not going to be freaky athletic at the next level. Okay, he's not that fast. He's not as freakish and twitchy as he seemed he would be in college. That's one thing. But on the other side, a lot of the same people and a lot of these draft nicks are saying that he has the best accuracy in the class, that he makes the quickest and best reads in the class, that he has an incredible cerebral nature in the pocket, moving the pocket around. and creating, excuse me, and creating space for himself to make plays, extend plays, and push the ball downfield, that he's great at hitting the ball at all three levels. And I hear these things, and then I see him dropping down draft boards. And then I see him getting ranked below Cam Ward. And I hear about Jackson Dart moving up in the ranks. And then I start asking that question, because he is not running a 40 time at the combine, he's going to drop down because people are afraid of his lack of athleticism. Well, I think about what's been going on in this league over the past few years. And to me, Shedeur Sanders knocks out almost everything that you want in your quarterback. Because outside of the Josh Allen and the Lamar Jackson, who are absolute freaks of nature, then we're talking about other people who aren't freaks, who are constantly making good decisions, pushing the ball to all parts of the field, and making people around them better. Are those not all three things that Shedeur Sanders is undoubtedly good at? To me, all the positives we're highlighting for him are more translatory to the next level. All the positives that he brings to the table are actually the things that you say you want in a quarterback. He gets people involved at every level, right? He makes his receivers better. He extends plays not just because he's fast, but because he makes good decisions in the pocket. He doesn't turn the ball over. Like, who does that sound like? That sounds like all the quarterbacks who have had good years, year after year over the last couple. It sounds like a Baker Mayfield. It sounds kind of like a Jared Goff. It sounds like a Joe Burrow. And now Joe Burrow probably has a little bit of a stronger arm. But Shedeur Sanders reminds me of that. Somebody who is going to be pinpoint accurate, push the ball to all three levels, and make his receivers and weapons around him better. Because that's what Shedeur has always done. Shedeur Sanders has also played a ton of college football. And to me, this is a monkey see, monkey do league. You see last year, the Washington Commanders and the Denver Broncos bring in Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix. What did Jaden Daniels and Bo Nix have in common? They played a hell of a lot of college football. Played 30, 40 games of college football. Well, Shedeur Sanders has been a starter for 4 years. Shedeur Sanders has been a winner for 4 years. 2 years at a different level, I get that. But 2 years at Colorado, where he went to a school that had no hope and no anything to look forward to before him and his dad got there, and took them to a bowl game in year 2 on the national spotlight right away and showed up upsetting people. And how did he do that? Not because his run game was special. Not because he had the best wide receiver room all getting drafted in the top 2 rounds like a lot of these other quarterbacks do. I mean, we talk about Mac Jones and we talk about Justin Fields and we talk about CJ Stroud, and more often than not, these guys fail. CJ Stroud's the outlier, people. He's the outlier. These people fail because we get tricked because they're throwing to a wide receiver room with 4 first-round picks in it. And yeah, of course, Shedeur Sanders had Travis Hunter. He's incredible. He's one dude. He's one dude. I mean, we're talking about Ohio State with some literally sometimes 4 wide receivers who are first rounders in the room at once. We're talking about Alabama with 4 wide receivers who are first rounders at once. So how are we judging those quarterbacks in the same breath that we're judging a Shedeur Sanders? And I think we're officially at the point where we are tricking ourselves. Because how do we on one hand say that what we're looking for is accuracy, number 1? We're looking for quick decision making. That might actually be number 1. And reading the defense, being instinctual. Those are all the things, right? Think about freaking Chris Collinsworth right now. I know people probably don't want to listen about Chris Collinsworth right now, but when he gets all jacked up on a freaking Sunday night, he's like, oh my God. Then you look at Pat Mahomes, man. He's making this play. He threw that ball before he's even looking, right? Those are the things that Shedeur's good at. And everyone wants to pick on, oh, he's not running the 40 because he's actually not that fast. Oh, he's Deion's kid. Why do you really want all that going on with your franchise? Because everyone seems to also agree that he's incredibly accurate. He's a gamer. He's tough as nails. He makes smart decisions, doesn't turn the ball over. What more do you want? I don't get it. I truly don't understand. Think about Jalen Hurts. And yeah, Jalen Hurts is a top tier athlete for sure. But he wasn't out here running the ball like a psychopath, running people over like Josh Allen, making people miss like crazy like Lamar Jackson. He runs when he needed to run. Jalen Hurts didn't look very fast to me this year, if we're being honest. Sam Darnold was a good athlete. He still gets yards on the with his legs if he wants to. Shedeur's athletic enough, all right? Let's be real here. But if you think about these people who are creating successful offenses, what are they good at? They're accurate on all levels. They make good decisions. They make people better. To me, Shedeur Sanders is officially being overlooked. The fact that he's dropping down so far when there's people all over the league right now who have similar skill sets to him. Brock Purdy being another one. And yeah, of course, maybe you don't want to compare your top 5 pick to Brock Purdy, who is the last pick in the draft. But guess what? Brock Purdy's been playing like a top first round pick since really year 2 in the league. That was an oversight. And he's another guy that people overlooked because, his size isn't that special. His athleticism isn't that special. But he's insanely accurate. But he's played a crap ton of football in college and has great experience and can read a defense. But what? You're saying all the things that are good about the dude. And you're pointing to gray area crap because of who his dad is as to why he shouldn't be a top pick, why you as a Giants fan or a Jets fan wouldn't want him. It's crazy to me. This guy's been a winner for 4 years straight. Did we not learn anything from Bo Nix and Jaden Daniels last year? And Jaden Daniels, freak athlete with the running, and Bo Nix got a little more size on him. But he ain't that special athletically, Bo Nix, and he still be picking up yards with his legs. Just saying. We're talking about a dude who wins. We're talking about a dude with insane accuracy who doesn't turn the ball over. It should be a dream come true for a team. And Caleb Williams, let's be clear here. Did he look as athletic in Chicago as he did at USC? No, because it was the next level. Is Caleb Williams going to be running for 80 yards a game? Absolutely not. What is Caleb Williams good at? He was good at extending plays. He was good at pushing the ball, taking good high risks, etc. Shedeur has some of those same features, but he's even more accurate. He is literally looked at as one of the most accurate quarterbacks in the last few years. Same with Jaden Daniels. Another reason why Jaden Daniels was meant to have success this early. He was so accurate. Have we not learned? Have we not learned? More and more college quarterbacks are coming into the league and finding success because they've played a lot in college. More and more college quarterbacks are coming into the league and finding success because accuracy is one of their best traits. More and more college quarterbacks are coming into the league and having success because they can actually read a defense and didn't rely on chucking it up to top-tier talent over and over again to rack up crazy amount of yards and touchdowns. Check, check, check for Shedeur Sanders. And now I understand I haven't talked that much about Cam Ward, but the juxtaposition for these two quarterbacks to me is just perfect. Because everyone, when they're hyping up Cam Ward, wow, did you see that massive throw he made to the back corner of the end zone? Did you see how big and physical he looked on that run? Did you see the arm talent on that throw? And that's the example of us being fooled over and over and over again. Wow, this guy, man, he's got a rocket for an arm. Oh, this guy, dude, he's going to be something special if he puts it together, if he becomes more accurate, if he can actually read more than just half a defense at a time, if he can work with a top-tier coordinator. To me, I'm not taking if he figures it out. I'm taking figured it out already. To me, that is Shedeur Sanders and not Cam Ward. And that's all I got. But to close it up in the meantime, I'm happy to be where we are currently with this draft order. Especially as a Giants fan, the more I think about where we're at right now, this is a win-win-win for the New York Giants. The New York Giants are picking third, and they're lucky because there are two quarterbacks that people like generally, 2.5 if you want to count Jackson Dart. And there's a bunch of good players that people like. People really like Abdul Carter. People really like Travis Hunter. People really like Mason Graham. People really like Will Campbell, too. The Giants are going to get one of these dudes. The Giants are either going to be setting themselves up for an attempt at a new quarterback, or they are going to grab a top 2 player in this draft. And to me, it's a win-win-win. You take one of these quarterbacks, and you get the excitement of a top pick coming in, and yes, it's in a weaker class, but getting to watch this person try to figure it out. You don't get a quarterback, and they end up going 1-2. You get Travis Hunter. You get Abdul Carter. 2 guys who are looked at as stars in this draft. The Giants should be thrilled right now. And if I'm the Jets on the other side of town, I'm also feeling pretty good. Because there's a bunch of players that are good here. It depends where you look, right? You can see, Mason Graham falling down to 7. You can see Will Campbell being picked at 7. You could see Tyler Warren, the Penn State tight end, going in that 7 spot there. The Jets have a chance to get a really good player. Like, they have a chance to get a really good quality starter at pick number 7. And just in case these quarterbacks do fall, which has been becoming more and more likely since the Shedeur stuff is dropping off a little bit, if I'm the New York Jets, I am taking Shedeur Sanders without blinking. You give Shedeur Sanders, Garrett Wilson, and Breece Hall for easily be the best running back he's played with, because the run game at Colorado wasn't special. And then you bolster that line. You got some weapons. You're looking at a good, well, I shouldn't say good offense right away, but a chance for a good offense right away. I'm excited for New York sports for that reason. I think there's a legitimate chance both the Giants and Jets fans walk away very satisfied after this draft. And of course, you don't know where they're going with free agency yet, who they're going to be looking to sign, move, trade, etc. Obviously, both teams desperately just need offensive line play to be better, desperately. The Giants need some defensive backfield help. The Jets do need to kind of get a little tougher possibly on defense. The Jets need some offensive line. I think we're going to walk away happy, both of these drafts here. All right. Last thing real quick, just some quick notes. If you look at the mock draft on the Ringer right now, Danny Kelly, then you have Cam Ward 1, Abdul Carter 2, Shedeur Sanders 4, and he's predicting Will Campbell to the Jets, which I would be very happy with that draft. Listening to this podcast, I think you'd know that I'd be very happy with that draft for both sides there. And then if you look at like a Tankathon on their mock draft, they got Cam Ward, Abdul Carter, Shedeur Sanders as well. It's starting to look that way. It's starting to look that way. And if you look at the props really quick they only have Travis Hunter and Ashton Genty. They don't have the quarterbacks ones yet. We'll do more of that. Don't you worry. We'll do more of that stuff, though. It's very exciting. That's all we got. Anyone who popped in and out of the spaces while I was up here, appreciate y'all. Also on Subway Sports Talk, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your Apple Podcast app, on Spotify, on YouTube. No matter where you listen to podcasts, we appreciate y'all the same. And also hit us on socials at Subway Sports Talk. It's a good time to be a sports fan. And even if not that many people are telling you as such, because they're trying to crap on your favorite team, they're trying to crap on your favorite player, they're trying to crap on the NBA, hate on baseball, whatever it may be, who cares? Find the content that you like. It's out there. I'm telling you it's out there. So if you're hearing me say the words that I'm saying right now, then you know it's out there. So I appreciate anyone for tuning in. As always, signing off. For Subway Sports Talk, I'm Pete Kennedy. We'll talk to you soon. Cheers.